गजाननं भूतगणादिसेवितं कपीतजम्बो फलचारुभक्षणम् उमासुतं सो कविनाशकारकं नमामि विगणे स्वरपादपङ्कजं सर्वमङ्गलमाङ्गल्ये शिवे सर्वार्थसाधिके शरण्ये त्र्यम्बके गौरी नारायणी नमोस्तुते नारायणी नमोस्तुते नारायणी नमोस्तुते। राधे कृष्ण 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 राधे 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 श्याम श्यामा श्याम श्याम राधे 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 कृष्ण 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 राधे 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 श्याम श्यामा श्याम श्याम राधे 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 कृष्ण 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 राधे 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 श्याम 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 राधे 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 कृष्ण 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 राधे 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 श्याम श्याम राधे 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 कृष्ण 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 राधे 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 श्याम श्याम राधे 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 कृष्ण 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 राधे 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 श्याम श्यामा श्याम राधे 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 कृष्ण 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 राधे 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 श्याम श्यामा श्याम राधे 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 कृष्ण 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 राधे 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 श्याम श्याम राधे 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 कृष्ण 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 राधे 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 श्याम श्याम राधे राधे कृष्ण 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 राधे 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 श्याम श्याम राधे 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 कृष्ण 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 राधे 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 श्याम श्यामा श्याम राधे 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 कृष्ण 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 राधे 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 श्याम श्यामा श्याम राधे 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 कृष्ण 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 राधे राधे श्याम श्याम राधे राधे कृष्ण 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 राधे राधे श्याम श्याम राधे कृष्ण 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 राधे श्याम श्याम राधे Radhe Krishna, Radhe Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Radhe Radhe. Radhe Shyam, Radhe Shyama, Shyam Shyama, Radhe Radhe. Radhe Krishna, Radhe Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Radhe Radhe. Radhe Shyam, Radhe Shyama, Shyam Shyama, Radhe Radhe. Radhe Krishna, Radhe Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Radhe Radhe. Radhe Shyam, Radhe Shyama, Shyam Shyama, Radhe Radhe. Radhe Krishna, Radhe Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Radhe Radhe. Radhe Shyam, Radhe Shyama, Shyam Shyama, Radhe Radhe. Radhe Shyam, Shyama Shyama, Radhe Radhe. Radhe Krishna, Radhe Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Radhe Radhe. Radhe Shyam, Radhe Shyama, Shyam Shyama, Radhe Radhe. Sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu niramayah, sarve bhadrani pasyantu, ma kaschid dukhabad bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.
Welcome to Satsang. So beautiful as always to be connecting with you from these beautiful and sacred banks of Mother Ganga into your homes, your rooms, wherever you are, being able to be together, sacred satsang. How do you know the difference between inner knowing and ego? It says, this is from Catherine Clements through Facebook, and it says, I'm trying through meditation and Kriya practice to strengthen my inner knowing. But how can I tell the difference between this inner knowing and my ego? So, we actually know a lot more than we pretend we know. There's an awareness within us if we are quiet and still enough to really hear it, to really allow ourselves to know it. The dilemma comes because the ego is so powerful that it's able to rationalize so much for us. We've got such insatiable desires. We want more and more and more. Every day it's a different level of desire. We have fears. We have identities that we are so stuck with. Who we think we are. Aspects of us, aspects of our history that we really feel like are us. And so when we listen to that inner voice that we're looking for, the ego speaks first, and it speaks loudly. And it comes as that attachment to how we already think about things, how we think things should be. But the truth really is, we do know the difference. But if we're not allowing ourselves to feel that difference, that's also ego. So this becomes the catch-22 situation. Is the ego is there dressed up as your inner voice. The ego is there dressed up as your higher knowing, your deeper knowing, as your intuition. You want to hear a quiet little voice, it'll be the quiet little voice. You want to hear a booming voice of God and truth, it'll be that. The ego is able to do it all. But it has this attachment to the status quo. It has this attachment to you being who it already thinks you are. To you being stuck. To you not fully embodying all the possibility and the potential. That divine sense of who you really are. And so this is where it takes surrender and it takes humility. Because it's not about an equation that can tell you, oh, this is how to know when it's my ego, or this is how to know when it's my inner voice. There is no equation you can plug it into and it's going to tell you. There's no stick that, like a pH meter that you can stick it in and say, this is, 80% inner voice, only 20% ego, or it's 90% ego, 10% inner voice. There's no way of actually measuring it. But we know inside of us. Because remember, it's all us. This is not outer space we're talking about. It's not about you're looking through a telescope and you're wondering, is that Venus or is that a star? This is your inner world. We do know. Puja Swamiji always says, even dogs know. When a dog steals a piece of bread or some food off of one of those carts, the telewalis, what does he do? He takes it. And then he looks around. If no one's there, the dog sits right there and eats it. But if someone's there, what does the dog do? Takes it, runs off into some dark little doorway or corner, kind of looking around, and eats it there. So even the dog knows what's true, what isn't true, what's right, what isn't right. It knows. And so we know. But because that ego is so strong, it convinces us, that voice of fear, that voice of desire, that voice that says you're nothing. You're too small to do this. You're too stupid to do that, or you're too old to do it, or too young to do it, or not qualified enough to do it. Or, oh my God, what would the neighbors say? All those voices, the ego tells you, that's your inner voice. But realize that the inner voice is actually not very interested at all about what the neighbors think. The inner voice is not very worried at all about how many likes what you say is going to get on Facebook. The inner voice isn't worried about that. The inner voice is connected to and concerned about really one thing and one thing only. And that's you embodying, you awakening to the highest truth of who you are. Which is, interestingly, both your absolute divinity, the consciousness, that infinite consciousness, that boundless, beginningless, endless, infinite consciousness, that truth of who you are, and the best of your humanity, that heart that loves, that cares, that weeps when you see others suffering, that mind that is so creative and has this initiative and creativity of what can I do for others? Oh, I have an idea. I saw those homeless kids today. I have an idea. I saw those hungry people. I have an idea. That highest humanity. These two, what seem like opposite ends of a spectrum, that's the highest goal for your inner voice. Because, interestingly, truly knowing the highest truth of who we are, that infinite consciousness, that divinity that's never born, that never dies, that soul, that actually happens together with our ability, our willingness to embrace the best of our humanity. It's not about giving up your humanity in order to recognize your divinity. The more connected and aware of my divinity I am, the more able I am to actually embrace the highest of my humanity. Because if I'm not in touch with the divine truth of who I am, the fullness, the completeness, the infiniteness, well then, I better grab all I can grab. Then it's the, he who dies with the most toys wins model of life. Then it's all about grabbing and competition, hoarding, yearning, lusting, because then there's never enough. Then it's all about lack and it's all about scarcity. But when I'm actually aware, deeply, of the infiniteness of myself, I'm then actually able to be the best human that I can be. I'm able to move through the world with compassion, with caring, with love, with tenderness, with generosity. Because I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid that your gain is my loss. I'm not afraid that everything is very scarce and I can't give to you because then, oh my God, what'll happen to me? I know that I'm infinite. I know that not just my cup runneth over, my self runneth over. Myself is the cup that runneth over, and myself is that with which the cup runneth over. So yeah, I become really generous with my time, with my energy, with my love, with my resources. I'm also able to use my mind, my brain, my thoughts, rather than figuring out how to get on top, how to get more, how to beat you. I'm actually able to use my brain, this amazing tool, with initiative, to plan for ways to help others, to serve, to have that creative initiative, to understand really what the world needs and how I can be of service to it. And so when those voices in you are talking all about me, when the voices are saying, there's not enough, grab what you can and run. When the voices are trying to keep you stuck and small, trying to convince you that there's not enough, that you're not enough. 1-day sale, 24 hours only, right? This is marketing. This isn't higher truth. It's ego. It's ego that's been indoctrinated by, co-opted by your own personal history, as well as the collective neurotic world in which we live. So the ego speaks in contraction. It's all about grabbing and hoarding and saving and protecting, fearing. The truth is all about openness, giving and sharing, fearlessly. And you know that because you feel it. You know what it feels like. You don't need me to sit here and tell you what it feels like to move from the ego compared to moving from your higher truth. You know it. You know how it feels inside, in the same way that you don't need me to tell you the difference between what hot and cold feel like. We know. You don't need thermometers and barometric pressure and all of that. We feel it. So allow yourself to feel it. Don't be scared. Don't allow the ego to scare you into thinking that if you actually go with your inner voice, oh my God, you're going to miss your piece of the pie. Oh my God, the sale's going to end before you get the shoes. Oh my God, you're not going to be on top. You're not going to have what you want or need. That's the greatest myth of the ego, is that it's somehow your ally, somehow looking out for you. Somehow the ego has got your back. It doesn't. Not your back, not your front, not your heart, not your life. The only thing the ego has is its attachment to itself. So listen. Listen a little more deeply. Listen a little more fearlessly. And you'll know.
Once you have meditated and practiced for a long time, you think you have figured out what is in you that is making you stressed and angry and has created the samskaras. Then how do you go on to heal them?
In many cases, insight itself can be the answer. In many cases, simply seeing the truth is enough. It's like my favorite scene at the end of The Wizard of Oz, where Toto pulls back the curtain, Toto the dog, pulls back the curtain behind which the wizard has been sitting. And everybody thought the wizard was this big, amazing, all-powerful being. But actually the wizard was just a little man with a big projector. And simply pulling back the curtain and beholding this little man with his projector was actually enough to immediately deflate, to dissipate, to dissolve his reign of power and terror. In a lot of cases, simply looking and seeing is enough. It's like the child crying because of the monster in their closet, and then the mom comes in and turns on the light and Lo and behold, it's not a monster, it's a jacket on a hanger. Now, when the mom turns the light out again, the child is no longer afraid. The jacket is still there on the hanger. But the fear is no longer there because the child knows, oh, it's not a monster. I just saw it. It's my jacket on a hanger. Or the snake in the rope. Yeah, it looks like a snake until you turn the light on, then you realize it's a rope. Now the light goes off again. And I'm not afraid now, thinking again it's gone back to being a snake. Once we see, in many cases, just seeing, oh yeah, that's why. And allow yourself to laugh about it. You know, there's an element of lightness with which we really need to take our own emotional dramas. And I don't mean that to discredit or belittle what we've been through. We've all been through a lot. I've been through a lot. But it's not as dark as it seems in our mind when we don't look at it. It's there, it's a piece, it's something that happened. It's just a piece, a moment in time, a few moments in time. And yeah, it left an impression. But there's an intensity with which most of us look at our issues, our story, our drama, our neuroses, as though somehow that was what my purpose here on earth was to just relive and relive and relive and swim in the whirlpool of that which happened in the first 5 or 7 or 12 years of my life. And yeah, there is pain, there's sadness, absolutely. But again, it's just an aspect, a moment, an impression. Allow yourself to have a little bit of lightness. Not denial, not repression, not suppression, not laughing because I'm nervous, none of that. But just a bit of lightness that takes ourselves with a bit of a grain of salt. And I say this from personal experience. There's 2 ways to look at your stuff when you see it. When it becomes obvious as you're meditating, as you're introspecting, as you're contemplating, maybe as you enter therapy, as you do any of these things that brings us face to face with our own sanskaras, why we are the way we are, why we have the issues we have. There's a tendency to take them very seriously. Oh my God, this happened. Oh my God, I was afraid of that. Oh my God, I was so hurt because of this. And I offer you, again from personal experience, I offer you the possibility that we can take ourselves with a bit of lightness, a bit of, how interesting. Yeah, wow, didn't realize that one thing Mom said, Dad said, my cousin said, my uncle said, my teacher said, my sister said. Imagine, 20, 30, 50 years later, imagine, that's why I get so angry. Wow, how interesting. Wow, that thing Mom did or Dad did, my cousin did, my uncle did, my sister did, my brother did, my teacher did. That thing, that's why I get so angry now. That's why I don't trust now. That's why I can't open up and step up to the plate of my life. Wow, how amazing. How amazing the psyche is. That even though that person is dead and buried or dead and cremated, I'm carrying it around. Amazing. That simple amazing, or wow, how interesting, rather than, oh my God, poor me. That's the lightness. That's the lightness I mean. Instead of jumping back into that ocean, allow yourself to just watch it like you were watching it from a cliff. Watch the ocean. Wow, how interesting. Amazing. And look at that. Mom was just doing the best she could. Yeah, she had her issues. Dad was just doing the best he could. Yeah, he was full of his issues. Everyone doing the best they could. With the sometimes very empty toolboxes they had. And look at how 20, 30, 50 years later, how I'm carrying around their lack of a full toolbox. How interesting. Because that lightness allows us to let go of it, to realize it isn't me. I have carried it, but I can also stop carrying it. So in many, many cases, simply seeing it is actually enough to dissipate it. In the cases where it's not, because of course there's also many cases where that which we see really is deep trauma. Real deep trauma. The stuff that maybe insight isn't enough. Well, there's a whole host of ways of working with trauma. Working with sanskaras and impressions that feel too deep for the tools that I have in my toolbox. And for that we've got so many ways, so many modalities. Through spiritual traditions, through traditions of psychology, through traditions that merge and marry spirituality and psychology. There's so many ways to address them. But what's most important is recognize that you aren't them. Stop the narrative that says, I am this, or I am that. No, you're not. Sure, you may have experienced that. You may have a pattern of electrical and chemical behavior in your brain that we call this. But it isn't you. You're not that which has happened to you. You're not the neurotic way that you've developed to deal with that which has happened to you. You're divine. You're full. You're whole. You are the consciousness that's conscious of that you've just seen in your meditation. So allow yourself to just watch it. When it comes up, notice it. But don't jump on board. It's a ship. Ship passing by your consciousness. Telling you, hey, jump on board. But you've been doing that your whole life. You've been acting and reacting based on those sanskaras, based on those patterns, based on that history. Your whole life. Let the ship sail. Stay just grounded in the awareness. Grounded in the mindfulness. Grounded in the consciousness. Oh yeah. Fear is arising. But I'm not the fear. I don't have to rise with the fear. I can just notice it. Allow yourself just to notice. And slowly, 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 it'll lose its hold on you. Doesn't mean it's going to go away. Doesn't mean that you won't be the person to whom these things happened. But it's going to lose its hold on you. It's going to lose its ability to dictate how you feel, how you react, how you live. And you're going to recognize that it isn't you. You'll be able to notice it with lightness. Oh, isn't that interesting? Haven't seen you in years. Thought we were done. Wow, there you are again. Okay, I guess there's another layer. Let's look at it. So just interact with it like that. See it lightly. And let it pass.
I noticed that I lost my spiritual being after my recent accident and had a head injury. I do not feel the same as I was earlier, even though I do the worship regularly as before. Is the spiritual being also related to our brain?
So, the spiritual being is not in the brain by any means. There's no accident that can impact our spiritual being. As Lord Krishna says so beautifully in the Bhagavad Gita, knives cannot cut it, fire cannot burn it, wind cannot dry it, water cannot wet it. Nothing can touch it. We're the soul. So certainly, if knives can't cut it, and water can't wet it, and fire can't burn it, and wind can't dry it, an accident isn't going to do anything to it. But an accident could absolutely impact the physical brain. And our physical brain is the way that we interact with our spiritual self. So if you notice changes, it may be something in the brain. This is why it's so important to get medically tested. Being a spiritual being doesn't mean that we don't take care of our physical bodies. We do. Make sure you get tested. Make sure they do the scans. But it also may be, assuming that the brain is okay, it also may be an emotional reaction to the accident. Traumatic response. If you've been in a bad accident, that's trauma. And trauma impacts how we move through the world. And so if your spiritual being was one that was fully surrendered and just grounded in faith and love, surrender, and then you get in an accident, particularly if it was serious, life-threatening, something in which you know or people tell you, oh my God, you could have died. It's very easy, even subconsciously, to start questioning. Is there a God? What's going to happen to me? I could have died. Oh my God. And there's very real trauma. And so allow yourself that. Allow yourself to work with the fear and the trauma that came up in the accident, because a lot of people notice that their spiritual experience is impacted by trauma. I remember when we were doing so much work in the tsunami-affected areas in South India after the big tsunami in 2004. And these are people who had been very religious, very spiritual. After the tsunami, they wouldn't go to temple. They literally said, God has forsaken us. Because in their mind, how could God allow this to happen? Many of them were fishermen. It was a fishermen's community. In India, in A lot of the rest of the world, the oceanfront property is the most expensive property. It's where wealthy people live. In India, frequently, most of the time, the beachfront property is actually the fishermen. And so for them, the ocean was their God. The ocean was the source of their life, the fish that they ate, their livelihoods, the fish they caught and then sold. The ocean was God for them. And then one day it just literally rose up and swept them away, swept away their families, swept away their homes. So they didn't believe in God. Took a long time and a lot of work to get them back in the temple. And I mention this because ask yourself deeply whether there's a sense within you, an emotional response to the accident. A response of fear, a response of trauma. Has anything happened to your faith in that sense of, oh my God, I could have died? And that awareness of the fragility of the human experience? A lot of things change when we come really face to face with the possibility of death. And for some people, it makes them much more spiritual. Makes them realize, oh my God, what in the world am I doing? Worrying about who's going to get the promotion at work. Worrying about whose name goes on the report. Worrying about who's got the corner office. And they become much more spiritual. And for some, it actually has the opposite impact. So allow yourself to be really scanned. Scanned by the doctors, by the neurologists to check the brain. But also scan yourself. Emotionally, psychologically. Really scan. Have you had a reaction to the accident that may have impacted your ability to surrender, your ability to connect? And it's fine if you have. It's normal. It's natural. Work with that. Allow working with that to become your spiritual progress, your spiritual process. Work with whatever comes up. Witness it. Notice it. Offer it to God. Offer your fear, skepticism, cynicism, whatever it may be, lack of trust, offer it to God. Whether you believe or not. Pujya Swamiji always says, don't worry if you believe in God. God believes in you. So offer it. And work with it. Slowly, slowly, slowly. It'll come back. And chances are it may come back in a whole new way. In an even deeper way. In an even more expansive way. Have a beautiful, beautiful rest of your evening. And we'll see you tomorrow here at 6 for our evening satsang, our evening meditation. Mondays and Fridays are meditation. Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday are satsang. So we'll see you tomorrow here, same time, meditation. And then we'll see you on Saturday for satsang. Have a beautiful, beautiful evening, beautiful morning, beautiful day. So, so, so much love to you all.